You're listening to Becoming an Expat, the ultimate threat to the mundane 9-to-5 life. If you want to live life on your terms, in your favorite place, keep listening. Your host is a paramedic turned author, entrepreneur, and international lifestyle expert, Shannon Enett.
Welcome back to Becoming an Expat. Today we're headed to Ecuador, where we're going to meet up with Amy Prisco. Amy has been in Ecuador longer than most. She's been there almost 10 years. She's a very bright, talented young lady, and I can't wait to bring to you the wisdom she has to offer you. She owns 3 businesses in Ecuador. She speaks fluent Spanish, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about her journey and what brought her to Ecuador. Amy, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. I can't wait to get into it.
Well, thank you, Shannon, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'm excited to share your life with everyone because you intrigue me ever since I met you. You know, I'm in Salinas at a hotel, and me and my ex were looking for somewhere to stay, and I think we got your name from someone sitting at the bar. I don't even remember how it happened, but
I don't either.
Yeah, I got your name, called you up, and you were like around the corner, and I swear to God, I blinked, I took a couple sips of my beer, and you were there. Do you remember that?
Yes, that was awesome. Yeah.
You're a go-getter, that's for sure. There's no doubt about it. So I got to meet you. You showed me some awesome apartments and houses to rent in Salinas. And of course, I took one of those and you were phenomenal. Became fast friends and got to work together. So that was fantastic.
Yes, it certainly was. It was a great time. It
was a good time. So I want to share with everyone kind of more about what it's like to live in Ecuador. But to do that, I want people to understand kind of what brought you to Ecuador and kind of who you are. So if you give me kind of like the Cliff Notes version of your life, you know, where you're from and sort of the path that set you towards Ecuador.
Sure, no problem. Well, actually, my first trip down to Ecuador was in 2006 when I just was going on vacation, and it was one of those bucket list items that I wanted to go see the Galapagos Islands. So I took my vacation time, and I'm a backpacker by nature, so I decided to come down to Ecuador with my backpack, not knowing anything about Ecuador, with my little Lonely Planets guide to Ecuador, and I decided to go to Galapagos by myself. And while I was in Galapagos, I said I might as well check out the mainland. So I did a total of 15 days in Ecuador on my vacation back in 2006. Mm-hmm. Really liked the country. Went back to New York, because I am from New York. I was working in corporate finance. And I just kind of decided, I turned 35 and said, I'm done. Was working way too many hours in New York. And I said, I'm done. This is really not fulfilling to me. I want to do something else. I said, Ecuador is pretty cool. So I went back to New York. I gave notice at the job, and I packed up my stuff, moved to Ecuador in June of 2007 with 2 suitcases in hand, not knowing anybody, and
wow.
Been here ever since.
That's insane. So, okay, your background's in finance, so you got to wonder, how are you going to finance this new life in Ecuador? I mean, what were you thinking?
I don't think I was thinking at all, quite honestly.
You were acting more than thinking, huh?
It was one of those things. It was just like, either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. And I must have been talking about moving out of the country for many years, because I know way back then my family would tell me, like, for example, that my brother was sick and tired of hearing me talk about at every Thanksgiving dinner that I wanted to live overseas. So I think that was just something that clicked in my head, and I decided that I was just going to do it. And fortunately for me, unlike a lot of folks who do come down to Ecuador, a lot of expats that we see here, I did have a background in Spanish. I learned Spanish when I was young. I started taking Spanish lessons in school since I was 13. So it did, I'm not going to kid you, it did make transition quite a bit easier. I not only started learning Spanish since I was 13, I went on to study it in college. I got my undergraduate degree in Spanish, and then I went on to get a master's degree in Spanish. So having an undergrad and a master's degree in Spanish, then an MBA in finance, my passion has always been the Spanish and the Latin American culture. So it kind of just was a right fit when I had come down here on vacation. It's like, yeah, it's time. Wow. And I said, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? I was 35. I moved down. If I don't like it, I go back.
Right.
Right. You know, so it was one of those things, like, if you don't try it, you're never going to know.
Right.
So that's really kind of what happened. And I came down, and it's been trial and tribulation. It's been good and bad. It's been ups and downs. But you know what? 9 years later, whatever it is, I'm still here. I'm doing really well. I enjoy it, and I don't plan on moving. So all in all is good.
That's great. Now, when you moved down initially, did you have a big savings account to kind of have a safety net, or was that not the case? Not at all, huh?
Not at all. I had $6,000. That's
Wow.
what I came to.
Okay.
And that's what I did. I said, I got to make it work on $6,000.
So run me through what that looked like. You landed in Ecuador, probably I'm assuming Guayaquil, or
yeah.
Okay.
Well, when I was here on my vacation, I checked out a whole bunch of cities and little towns and whatever. And coming from New York, coming from a fast-paced background, I knew that when I was moving here to Ecuador, I knew I had to go to a large city. That was just a given. I knew I was not going to transition well, so I knew I had to choose a large city where to start off. I did not like Guayaquil when I first came in 2006 on my vacation. Cuenca was very nice, but for whatever reason it was, Quito kind of won my heart. So when I did decide to move to Ecuador on a permanent level, I chose to return to Quito, and that's where it all started. So I landed in Quito, and from there, my original goal was to open up a travel agency because I just love to travel. Mm-hmm. And, I was 35, so I knew I had to find work. I knew I either had to get a job or create a job, and I definitely wanted to do tourism. And I quickly realized once I landed in Quito that every storefront in Quito was a travel agency or a tour company. And from my financial background, I said, there's no profit margin here. So one quickly has to start, becoming quite adaptable,
right,
and be more open-minded and really start changing that mentality. So when I realized that travel and tourism wasn't going to be the initial best way for me, I had to kind of change gears. And luckily for me, being bilingual and, being pretty free-spirited, I just kind of went with it, and whatever came my way, I kind of did.
And what did that look like? What projects did you get handed your way, or what projects did you hunt down?
For example, when I first, landed in Quito, I did end up working for a travel agency. Well, I shouldn't call it a travel. It was a tour operator.
Sure.
And they offered tours for high mountain ranges. So they would take people up to the peaks, and they would take people to the Andes Mountains. They would go down to Argentina and Chile and all of that kind of stuff. So I was helping them promote and, trying to bring in customers and things like that. Okay. And then I just started traveling around myself throughout the country. I started, going up and down the coast. Because Quito is in the mountains. Quito is higher than Denver. So it's in the middle of our mountain range here, in the middle of the country. But I started traveling on my own up and down the coast, ran into some folks in an area called Montanita, and they had mentioned some real estate shop to me by the name of Caldwell Banker. And I said, I certainly know what that is. I'm from New York. That's one of the most recognized names in New York real estate. And they said, well, do you want to put up a real estate shop with us? And I said, sure, why not? So I packed up and moved from Quito to Montanita with intentions of doing something which I had never done before. I will admit that. I'd never been a realtor in the U.S. So I said, why not? If this is an opportunity, I might as well try it. Moved to Montanita, spent about 4 months there, did not like it at all. It just was not for me.
Too small.
So, it was too small at that time. Yeah. I was still very much in big city world where Quito was slow-paced for me. And Quito is one of the fastest cities here in Ecuador.
I love Quito. I loved it.
Yeah, I was still trying to calm down and get acclimated to the mañana time that we work on here.
Right.
And so
explain real quickly, since you brought it up, explain what mañana time is to our listeners.
Oh, what did I used to tell you, Shan? It was like, mañana means any day, just not today. So,
yeah.
It's really, you have to really learn to embrace that mañana time mentality, because you will not make it here or last very long if that's not something you can deal with well, whether it's vacationing or doing business or coming to study or having a relationship with somebody who's Latin. It's just, time is not so important. Right. So you need to understand that, with the exception of maybe flight schedules, pretty much everything else is, optional.
Right.
So Yeah, so I was still acclimating to Ecuador time and their lack of respect for timeliness, and then moving to a beach town because Montanita is the beach,
right.
with a very small population. It was quite a culture shock. I just didn't like it. It wasn't for me at that point in my life. And Caldwell at that point was opening an office in another town further south of Montanita called Salinas, and they asked me if I wanted to go to Salinas, and I said, sure, why not? And that's what brought me here to Salinas, where I am now, back in beginning of 2008. So I've been permanently in Salinas since 2008.
And so you entered the real estate world, which is now what you own a business in, just by saying yes to someone, basically. That's how your journey started?
Pretty much. It was just somebody randomly who I had met passing through traveling, and we were talking, and when I, went back to Quito, they called me and said, hey, do you want in? And I said, why not?
Yeah.
Because Ecuador is the kind of place where you've got to be able to roll with punches and just go with the flow.
Right.
Coming from a North American background where you're only supposed to focus on one thing and do one thing really well and be an expert in one thing.
Right.
And we don't change our jobs frequently. We're lifers at jobs most of the time.
Right.
That mentality was very hard to overcome here for me. I was just, thinking, oh my goodness, I come down looking to put up a travel agency. Now I'm doing real estate. What's going to be next? And I've had many experiences since then. I mean, I've taught English, I've taught Spanish, I've run bars and restaurants. I mean, I've done everything from soup to nuts here. It's really just kind of what do you do,
Yeah. And I mean, you're so educated. You already had, your master's and your MBA and everything else. And then now you're in this new arena. And I know that you got licensed in Ecuador. What was that process like?
Yeah, well, actually, quite honestly, what I ended up doing when I did start to work for Caldwell Banker back in 2008, I went back to New York to get my New York real estate license. I said, well, I might as well do it in New York just to get it. So I ended up getting my New York real estate license, which I've never used because I've not been back to New York. But I did want to do things the right way. When I was working in New York, my background and my area of expertise was compliance. So I kind of am a rules and regulations kind of a person. And that's kind of hard in a third world kind of a country where where rules and regs really aren't enforced.
Right.
But I did all my research, and when I started working in real estate here, I really wanted to do things the right way and do it the way, a North American would hope to expect. So I researched licensing, and beginning in 2010, I started taking the course. There is a real estate course. It's 120 hours. It's all in Spanish. Nowadays, it costs almost $3,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and I had to travel back and forth from Salinas to Guayaquil. I did it 3 days a week for 6 months. So it was
no easy hurdle. This was a lot of sweat labor. Yeah.
I was the first expat to get my Ecuadorian real estate license, so I'm pretty proud about that.
Right.
And so I got licensed. I did that back in 2010. And I'm glad I did. It's one thing I can now just check off that list that I don't have to do, that it's already done.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen changes. I mean, obviously, since I met you, you know that I've purchased the RE/MAX franchise, so I'm not with Caldwell Banker. I ended up going independent after being with them only about a month. I went independent, and then 3 years ago, I saw the need to have a lot more formalized and more regulated, I guess, and more recognized professional real estate shop here in Salinas. So I ended up buying the franchise for RE/MAX for Salinas. So I was pretty happy with that. So, here I am, so it's kind of like an evolution. And it's, again, it's just being able to keep up with what's going on and roll with punches and being open to going in different directions.
Yeah, being flexible. And I know, well, I'm not a New Yorker, but I bet, they're not known for their patience, and so.
Yeah, and I'm not known for my patience.
I'm not either, and I'm a Californian, I tell you. But if you can roll with the flow and be patient, you can be a better traveler and international lifestyle expert, I think.
Absolutely. And it will make your stay here, whether it's a vacation stay or a business stay or a retirement permanent stay, it really will make, your experience with Ecuador a lot more enjoyable.
Right.
You know, like I said, embrace mañana time and embrace flexibility and just roll with those punches, and you'll do just great here, you know.
Had you traveled? You said you had backpacked a bunch. Now, you had gone to the Galapagos in Ecuador, loved it. Had you been to many other Latin countries, or were there any other countries on your radar, or was it just all Ecuador because you had just been there? Like, tell me why Ecuador.
Yeah, well, honestly, before Ecuador was my 23rd country. So
Okay.
I traveled quite a bit. Believe it or not, there weren't many Spanish-speaking countries before that. I've been to Belize, but that's not Spanish-speaking, Mexico, obviously, Peru, and Spain. And Spain is where I did my undergraduate studies there. I did my master's degree there. I had gone to Spain once a year for probably 16 years in a row since I was 16.
Wow.
Spain was where I originally was going to go. I have a ton of friends in Spain. I was going to go there when I decided that, you know, I was just done with New York. But quite honestly, at that time, 2006, Europe was in its height. I mean, the European Union was booming, and Spain was expensive. Mm-hmm. And getting a visa was not so easy.
Okay.
So quite honestly, my decision to do Ecuador is, well, I came down on vacation to see if I liked it and if it was okay. And quite honestly, if it was safe enough for a single female. Mm-hmm. And I saw that on my vacation that it was fine. And realizing that Ecuador was a lot more economical, Ecuador was a lot more open to foreigners coming down and getting visas, that's quite honestly how I made my decision. It was economics and ease of access for somebody like myself, knowing I was going to be looking for work, knowing that I had to work. I was 35, no pension, and I needed to find work. So that was really what, you know, kind of led me to Ecuador.
Gotcha. And what visa route did you end up taking initially?
Initially, I ended up doing the business visa, which I would not recommend to anybody going forward. I don't even know if they have it anymore. But it was a rigmarole. It's still problematic. Owning a business and having a business visa are two separate entities, and I would not recommend doing a business visa for somebody coming down. But that's what I have, and that's what I did. And it's been fine for me, but I'm lucky. I speak the language. I know a lot of people here now. I have a lot of contacts. But I definitely wouldn't recommend that route to anybody going forward.
What would you recommend instead?
Well, it depends. You know, really, especially my clients, when they're coming down, quite honestly, most people I see coming down are retirees.
Right.
So you can get a pensioner visa.
Right.
Or if you own a property here, you can use your deed as the basis for your residency visa. Mm-hmm. Or simply by investing $25,000 into an Ecuadorian CD at a bank.
Right.
That too can get you an investment type residency. So there are other easier ways. You know, so if people need information on that, they can contact me also. But there are many different ways, but I definitely would not recommend a business visa. Like I said, the easiest ones are going to be pension visas. So if you do get a pension from the U.S. or Canada and get that Social Security letter that says you receive at least X amount of dollars per month, you're good to go.
Tell me about what it was like to leave behind your old life and your family and your friends, you know, and land in Ecuador alone as a single female.
Honestly, leaving family and friends, it was a mixed bag. I think half of them were so happy for me that I was going to live the dream. For example, one of the people that I used to work with, he just told me, "You've got a lot of guts." He's like, "I give you a lot of guts. I would never do it." And I think it's one of those things, like half the people were like in awe.
Right.
They're like, "Really? You're going to," like awe, like in a good way, like, "Wow, that's amazing. You're just packing up and moving." And I'm like, "Yeah." And the other half thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, of your mind, you're leaving a good job, you're leaving your friends and your family. Like, what are you thinking? And I said, I'm thinking outside the box, you know?
Yeah.
So, it was really mixed bag. My family to this day, my father's side of the family, when I speak with them, is it out of your system yet? Are you coming home? And I always say, it's been 9 years, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I know when I first moved down, when my parents took me to the airport, I remember my mother telling me, you know, she hugged me. She's like, just She's like, you know what? I've been waiting 20 years for this day. Get out of here. Go live your dream. Don't come back.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Some people get it, some people don't, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, my sister, she just cannot understand why I like that type of lifestyle, living abroad and having these different adventures. She thinks I'm running away from something. I'm like, you don't understand. I'm running to passion in life and experience and adventure.
I do think you're right. I think your sister has a point there. I think a lot of people do think you're running. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, I don't think we're running. I think we're looking. You know, I think you're looking for opportunity. You're looking for something different. You're looking, like I said, you have a passion. Maybe you can't fulfill it where you were. It's no different to me than had I moved from New York to Texas. It's just a different place. Yes, we're in a different country, different culture, but, you know, and again, it depends on everybody. It just, I don't know. I guess I'm like you. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy, you know, and I'm also very independent. I'm not very, you know, attached. Mm-hmm. So it's easy for me to pack up and go. Not many people can do that. Yeah,
definitely. You have to have a certain, you know, build, like your personality and
assumption to be adventurous and to be okay on your own and to understand that, you know, you make this choice. You're not always going to have good days, Shan. You know that. Even back in New York, there were good days and bad days.
Right.
I'm not going to kid you. I have good days and bad days here. It's not a perfect paradise, but you make the best of it, you know, and make your choice. And says, okay, I'm here. This is what's going on. I can choose to stay here, or, you know what? If I wanted to go to Bolivia tomorrow, I could do that.
Right.
You know, most people probably would think you were crazy for saying I want to go to Bolivia tomorrow. But to me, I'm like, it's who you are. It's your nature. It's either you've got it or you don't. And I give people, especially retirees I have people who come down a lot. It's their first time getting a passport, first time leaving the U.S., and they move here. I give those people credit.
Right.
I at least, you know, at age 35, I had the language skills. I'd been to 22 other countries. Okay, it kind of makes logical sense in Amy's life. But for some retirees to move down at age 55, 60, 65, not knowing the language, never leaving the country, you know, first time getting a passport perhaps, that's applaudable. You know,
right. Really, they've got some major huevos.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those are thrill seekers. That's like the roller coaster ride, man, right there.
A lot of credit, you know, I mean, and honestly, Shannon, you know, in these past 9 years that I've been here, it has become a lot easier to transition here. When I first came down to Ecuador, there was Facebook had just started, I think. I mean, or just became like a hot item was Facebook. I had just opened up a Facebook account specifically so that way my family could see pictures of me still alive. You know, that was the reason I did that. There were no blogs. There were no podcasts like we're doing now. Hardly anybody was covering Ecuador. So when I came down, you know, I consider myself a true pioneer.
Right.
You know, I had no help. I really had to do it on my own. There was no, other than a travel book, which was based on, you know, which was really geared towards people who were traveling and backpacking.
Right.
There was nobody to help me set up a business, get a visa, do this, do that. It was really trial and error on my part. And, you know, it's a lot easier today for foreigners to come to Ecuador and just transition. It's a lot easier.
Oh, yeah. People like you are building the scaffolding for them.
Yeah, it's quite simple, quite honestly. It's almost so simple. It's actually, people question you, like, you don't only need a passport to buy a property. I'm like, yeah, all you need is a valid passport. You don't even have to live here. So small things like that. And you only need to invest $25,000 to get a resident visa. Right. Those are things that kind of sound a little far-fetched, but it's the reality here.
Well, tell me more about the realities there. What are your favorite and least favorite parts about living in Ecuador?
Okay, least favorite parts. Well, obviously, me being an impatient New Yorker, you know, sometimes, even after 9 years, the lack of timeliness does get to you every now and again. It does rear its ugly head. So that can be a little bothersome. You do miss friends and family. I'm not going to kid you, but, you know, Skype, Facebook, Magic Jack, I call home a lot, you know, that helps. Every once in a while you get a craving for, you know, a good New York bagel. But, you know, so now some of the people here are trying to make bagels and stuff like that. You know, so there's small things, and gradually over time, you know, those kind of things kind of dissipate, and you learn to find substitutes for things that you didn't think you could live without. but also the good things. Well, it's an easy lifestyle here, I guess you could say. I mean, it's not easy, but it's laid back. Especially here at the beach, very laid back. The people are great. They're very warm. They're very welcoming. It's easy to travel here. And if you're a travel bug, like I know you are, and when we done how we just did a couple of local little, jaunts, it's easy. It's economical. This country has so many sites to offer for such a small land area. Galapagos, the Highlands, the Amazon, the coast. It's really quite diverse. So it makes living here really, a lot of fun, and you can do whatever you want. You can do as little as you want or as much as you want, and it's easy access to everything. It's got a lot of pluses. The downside always is, you leave behind family, and we do see people who, especially the retirees who have grandkids, it does wear its toll,
Right.
You do miss those grandkids, watching them grow up, so that, not necessarily for me because I'm single, I don't have kids, but, for my friends here, my clients here, you do see that it is kind of tough for them at times when they're missing the grandkids' birthdays, communions, first prom or whatever,
Sure.
But again, it's a choice. Traveling to and from Ecuador to the States is so easy. Once you figure out the flight schedules and what's the good time of year to go, people come and go all the time to visit. So hopefully, your friends and family will come visit. Mine still haven't, but that's okay. So yeah, those are some pluses and minuses to, life here in Ecuador.
What do you think about the food there? Because I liked the seafood and I liked some of the coastal food, but then I was a little underwhelmed with some of the other food.
Well, I quite honestly think that most folks are going to be underwhelmed with a lot of the Ecuadorian cuisine. And my rationale for that is that I think, people who don't know Ecuador tend to lump it into Latino culture and cuisine. I think most North Americans know Mexican cuisine and that spicy, really flavorful, kick that Mexican cuisine has. And when you come to Ecuador, you don't get that at all.
No, it's very bland in my opinion. But you know what? You're right next door to Peru, and I think Peru has one of the best foods in the world. So what happened? What happened?
I wish I could tell you what happened. Maybe this kind of skipped over Ecuador, but they do have some nice dishes here. Each region has its own specialties, obviously. Like, when you were here with me in Salinas, seafood is key. You go a little bit further up the coast, the Manta, they put mani, the peanuts and everything. Every region has its different stuff. And obviously, if you like food with a little bit of spice, a little bit of kick, that's what you get. Remember, I don't know if you remember when we would eat out, get that ají on the table, which is like, homemade, like, a hot sauce.
Yeah.
So you can add it to whatever you want. So if you needed that extra kick, you would just ask for ají, and it's usually homemade. Every restaurant usually has their own version of it, and you just add it. People here put it into soups. They put it on rice. They put it on eggs. They put it on meat. They put it on anything to get that extra flavor, So,
right.
Yeah, it is kind of on the bland side of food, but all in all, again, finding what you like and just, there are now, especially, in more populated areas, the bigger cities, if you want your Peruvian food, you can get it. If you want your Tex-Mex food, you're going to be able to get it. I mean, they've got Carl's Jr. here now. So,
really? I love Carl's Jr. It's kind of embarrassing to admit, but I do.
We're eventually going to catch up to all the, the world delicacies that, we might have, but obviously the smaller towns that you go to, you're not going to get that. But a town like Montanita that's known for its, international, hustle and bustle, you're going to find Russian, Peruvian, Argentinian, North American, all those kind of things there. And obviously, again, big cities, Guayaquil with 3 million people, Quito with almost 3 million people, you're going to find more options.
Right. Okay. Now, out of everything with your new life, basically a decade in Ecuador, what do you miss the most from New York or your old life? Maybe a luxury you had, or maybe just something you could do or eat, or just what do you miss the most?
Well, honestly, I would like to be able to say that I could just hop into my car and go in New York, but I can do that here because I have a car.
Yeah,
here.
you have a car. That's normally my answer when I don't have a car. When I live abroad, if I don't have a car, that's always my answer. But so I was curious.
And I would say that would have normally been my first answer because as a North American, you just want that freedom to be able to just go when you want to.
Right.
But it's awful to say this, and oh my gosh, I wish there was a Walmart or a Home Depot. One-stop shopping. I wish it were open 24 hours. So when I went back to New York, I'd get home from work. I'd get home really late. And around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, I'd go to Walmart, do all my shopping, and come back. You know,
and just be done.
Yeah. And one-stop shopping. I hate to say that, God, they're going to kill me for saying it, but I wish there was either a Walmart or a Home Depot. I really do. Because every time I go back to New York, you know what I'm doing. I'm shopping. So.
Right. Oh, that's funny. Would you ever consider moving back to the States? Or are you just like, nope, it's been too long, I can't do it?
I think I could do anything. So like I said, if I had to move to Bolivia tomorrow, I would move. I think I am pretty adaptable. But quite honestly, do I have any intentions of going back to the States at this point? No.
Sure. But if things change in your life, you're not like closed-minded about it.
You never know, Shannon. You know, you never know. I mean, as you know, my mom passed away 3 years ago this August. I thought that if I were to go back to the States, it probably would have been around that time. And I didn't. I saddled up and you know, I said, you know, my mom loved the fact that I was here. So I said, I'm doing this for her. This is, you know, it's go big or go home kind of thing. So I think, you know, if you have something major in your life like that happens, something like that were to happen to me, like if I were to get married or do something like that, or if somebody were to really be seriously, you know, something happened, maybe I would, but quite honestly, I can't think of any situation that would warrant me to go back. You know,
I can think of one.
You know,
love is in the air.
Well, hey, you never know.
You never know.
I would venture to say, Shannon, that it would be a lot more likely for me to leave Salinas and go to a different place here in Ecuador than it would be for me to go back to the States.
I got you. Okay. Let's talk about some commonly asked questions about life in Ecuador. People always ask me, you know, how much do you need to live comfortably there? And that's such a vague question because you don't know what their lifestyle preferences are. You don't know if they drink a ton. You don't know.
Subjective question. Like, what I'm comfortably, you know. But what I tell people, and especially obviously in my business in real estate, you know, we get that question here all the time. You know. Right. People are trying to budget when they come down either to rent or they want to buy. You know, you do need to have a budget in mind. You do. It would be kind of silly to come down to Ecuador and not know what you are willing to spend. Now, on the flip side of that, you kind of know what to expect as far as expenses in order to come up with a reasonable budget. But here in Ecuador, I'll give you my point of view from the coast because you know, living in Salinas is going to be different than living anywhere else. And believe it or not, even though we are on the coast, Salinas is a pricey town. We are a resort destination. Salinas has been here long before us expats ever showed up. Right. It has been a place where, you know, wealthier Ecuadorians have second or third homes. There are 3 yacht clubs in this area. And so obviously Salinas is not a little small fishing village where you're going to be able to live on the cheap per se. Okay. Does that mean you can't live economically here? No. But, you know, if you're going to live oceanfront and a high rise, you know, great ocean view here and go out every night to dinner, if you like to have your wine and your beer and, you know, travel a lot, obviously that comfort level is going to be a lot more expensive than somebody else's. I try to tell people to budget $1,000 a month per person. Maybe a little bit more nowadays. It might be closer to $1,500 per month. That would include pretty much everything. Your rent, you know, your expenses, your utilities. So you could easily live, and you could do it on less. You absolutely can, but you really want to think between $1,000 and $1,500 as a safe number and per person. So if it's a couple, maybe you could do $2,000. But you always want to err on the side of you know, having over budgeted than under. You know what I mean?
So what would you think as far as nightlife or going to restaurants? Like, how many times would you go out to eat, would you think, like on average with that budget?
Me personally?
Well, with that budget, with that, you know, with that recommendation, that $2,000 for a couple.
Again, depending where you go to eat. Right. Also, definitely a factor. You're eating out on the boardwalk here in the Malecón of Salinas, you're going to be paying a pretty penny, but there are plenty of other restaurants now. For example, if you eat lunch every day and you go to a place, we have a place right down the street, they now offer lunch specials for $2.50. You get a soup, a course, and a juice. I mean, if you do that every day, you're eating out every day, but $2.50. I think you can handle that, But if you choose to go to other places, you will easily find, items on the menu that cost $10 or $15. Mm-hmm. So it really depends where you also go out to eat. There are plenty of economical options. And a lot of people who like to cook at home don't have time to do that. Mm-hmm. The markets here, if you remember the market, Shen, they're really economical.
Yeah, I had to go to the market. I was with a vegetarian, and there's not any vegetarian cuisine in Ecuador.
That is one thing that is difficult to find, and it's so weird. You would think they would have that.
Even the soups.
Fruits and veggies are so cheap here. So why is somebody doing that? I don't know. But
even the soup has meat in it. It's crazy. In Peru, next door, they have an entire section dedicated to vegetarian on the menu on every restaurant. It's the weirdest thing.
Although you will be pleasantly surprised if you do come back to visit me, there are a lot more vegetarian options. They're finally catching on that, the people who are moving here have different tastes. When you go into Supermaxi, our big market, right, you're going to see a lot more items now that you would see from the States. So things that we couldn't find 9 years ago when I first moved here, you're now seeing on the supermarket shelves.
Well, I do have to correct you and say not if I visit, but when I visit.
Oh, okay. So, when you come down, you're waiting. So
let's get that clear. Okay. Okay. So we got a basic idea of how much the basic budget.
Again, like I said, I'm just throwing out a rough number, and again, that's a Salinas rough number. Mm-hmm. I know, for example, you can find probably cheaper housing with all-included pricing probably over in Cuenca, right, but you don't got the beach.
Yeah, you don't have the beach, and Salinas has the warm weather. That's one of the top complaints is Cuenca is too cold.
Yeah, and the altitude sometimes is also an issue for some people there, depending on health issues. It could go either way. So, again, and also up the coast a little bit, you don't have to, Salinas is just one area that is very easy to transition to if you're coming from overseas, because we have a lot of everything here. We've got great transportation. We've got hospitals. We've got fire. We've got police. Mm-hmm. We have supermarkets. We're easy. We have, schools.
Hospital.
So it's easy for people to transition here. Mm-hmm. If you start going up the coast, those little intermittent towns, very nice. You'll probably find something a little bit cheaper, but you might not be so easy to get to other things. So it depends. Yeah. Again, when we talk about living comfortably, what's your idea of comfortable? Do you have to have everything at your fingertips, or do you not mind driving 2 hours to get to the nearest supermarket? So that's very relative to each person. So
are taxis still $1 to get anywhere in town in Salinas?
Depends where. Like from my office to Chapipe, it's $1. Get to the Paseo Mall, it's probably still about $2 at night. It's a nice differential. So they haven't gone up too much.
That mall is impressive in Salinas.
They expanded it actually. So, and when you come back, there's another little mini mall outside of Bayanita near the new bus terminal. So that's there now. Cool. The only thing I can tell you, inflation, the bus went up from 25 cents to 33 cents.
Well, that's it.
The local bus. So that went up. But that was, I've been here 8 years. It was the first time the bus fare went up. So,
well, we're going to talk about what you see for Ecuador. But before we do that, I want to get a little bit of I want you to educate me what it's been like to be a business owner and a real estate agent in Ecuador. So not only did you go through all your licensing, but to actually having to run a business, the day to day, and, deal with employees and the different culture and all the laws. Tell me how that's been.
We could have a whole 2-hour podcast.
We might have to, but give me the Cliff Notes.
I'll give you the short and sweet version. I don't want to scare anybody away, but it's not simple to run a legitimate storefront business in Ecuador. There is a lot of licensing, there are a lot of permits, a lot of compliance things, and unfortunately, it does seem that those of us who are doing things above board, we're the ones who get, we're the ones who get hit with more and more things we need to give them, more inspections, more this, more that. It is frustrating. I'm not going to kid you. It's one thing after another. For example, this year, in order to get my permits just for my office, not because of nothing to do with what kind of office, but just for the locale that I have here, this office space. I mean, the environmental people had to come in here, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And they came in and they did an inspection. You remember the size of my office, Shannon.
Yeah.
My office here is the size of my fingernail. It's teeny tiny.
But it's beautiful.
But they come in and they're like, nope, your garbage pails all need to have covers on them. You need to do this. I'm like, are you kidding? So, it was just, if they don't find something wrong, it's almost like they're not doing their job. So it's one thing after another. So again, we go back to that patience. You need to have patience. And I'm pretty lucky because I might not have patience. I know everybody in City Hall. I know people. I've been here long enough. I have the language ability. So I know the ins and the outs. So I do run a legitimate above board business. I have all my permits, all my licenses. I go through the whole rigmarole every year, and it's frustrating. But you do it. It's just part of what you do. You just go with it. From the labor side, labor. I think when I first moved to Ecuador, I think it was I think for a 40-hour work week, the monthly minimum wage in Ecuador, I think was about $230 per month. We're now up to, I think it's $375 per month for a full-time employee.
Okay.
40-hour work week. So obviously, labor is relatively cheap here. But you also have to realize that not all the labor is skilled. So you have that. And even if it is skilled, define skill. Define good bilingual people is hard. Especially, I need bilingual people in my business. I am very fortunate. I have a couple of really good, employees right now. I am very fortunate, and I thank God every day. I am grateful that they are in my life. It's been rough to go through a process of trying to find the right people who can work in a small office, who can work at my pace. I still have that New York pace, and who are bilingual and can grasp the fact that Ecuador culture and North American culture are two almost polar opposites. Mm-hmm. So the expectations from clientele that are Ecuadorian and the expectation from clientele that are U.S. or Canadian are very different. So you have to have staff that can handle both of that. And it's not easy to find good qualified staff that understands you have to be on time, that you have to do business in a certain way, and their expectations and repercussions. It's very common here for employees to not show up and not call in, and then yet show up the next day and say, I didn't have any money on my phone, I couldn't call you. You have to get over that. That's just what it is. So again, you learn that. They are not going to, you're constantly training them and repeating and repeating and repeating, and they do it over and over again. They keep making it. You've got to have patience, and it can be frustrating. Labor laws here are also a lot stricter than they are in the U.S. There is no at-will labor here. You have to have just cause to terminate somebody, and it is difficult to have just cause. So, there are tricky things about, being an employer in Ecuador. So again, not that I would dissuade anybody from opening up a business, but I would just, caution them to do their research and really see what it is that they want to do and how they want to do it. It's been 9 years of a learning curve, it really has been. And you learn new stuff every day, especially when you have employees, especially when you have businesses. Like you said earlier in the podcast, I now have two other. I finally did get my travel agency up, so I have that as a second business, which we're not fully functional at this point. But I opened it. I went through all the paperwork to do that, and that was a pain. Believe me, now I know why. Why there's not so many legitimate travel agencies and tour operators around. It's not easy. And I also have my Amigo Center, which is the concierge services. As you know, we do visas and all that kind of stuff. So it is challenging, but, after 9 years, I now have 3 little businesses, and hopefully, they'll blossom and flourish, and I'll be able to keep them going. And if not, in this kind of an environment, you just learn to shut the door and say, okay, cut my losses, I move on. So it's, again, being flexible, rolling with those punches, and having that patience, So those are the common themes to, being able to live and, in my case, work abroad.
Right. So where do you see Ecuador headed in the next 5 years? If you had a crystal ball and you're watching the trends and kind of seeing how it's growing and changing.
If I had a crystal ball, I don't think we'd be talking right now.
Hey, I'd be over there hanging out with you in the lottery number.
Exactly. But it's going to be an interesting next 12 months. I can tell you that much. I don't know, honestly, where we're going to be in 5 years, but the next 12 months are going to be pivotal for this country. I'm sure you're aware that we have an election coming up. I'm not talking about the election in the U.S. I'm talking about an election in Ecuador next year.
Okay.
So the next 12 months will be interesting in many ways. But next year is an election year. So the current president that we have has done a lot of good for this country. You're going to hear people saying that he didn't. You're going to hear people saying that he did. But I've been here the past 8 years that he's been in office, and you can visibly see so many changes. Some things are very good. Some things you sit there and you're questioning and you're like, what? But that's I think with any administration in any country, you're going to have those kind of opinions. But it will be interesting in the next 12 months because we have a presidential election coming up. We don't know who the candidates are going to be as of yet. There's hearsay about who could be a potential candidate. So we don't know who's going to be the next candidate. Mm-hmm. And I think that will really be a big decision maker for this country. I mean, obviously, we've progressed so much. I always like to say that when I first came to Ecuador 9 years ago, it was a third world country. I don't think we're third world anymore. I think we're definitely, the right term would be a developing country. Mm-hmm. I do think that the current administration would like to see this country jump from third world to first world and kind of skip that second world step.
Right.
I do see that happening a lot here. They do things really kind of fast, and I don't think they necessarily think things through all the time. Mm-hmm. But again, that could be said for many administrations in many different places. But I'm hoping that, with the path that Ecuador has been on, which I think has been positive and forward, going forward, I'm hoping it will continue. We're seeing more and more international interest in Ecuador. Ecuador is now on the map. I'll never forget when I left New York to come to Ecuador. It's funny. It's a little anecdote. They gave me a going away party at my office, and good luck in Ecuador. And they spelled Ecuador with a Q, So, I'm like, I don't even think the people in my office knew where Ecuador was, quite honestly. I know I had many people back then ask me, Ecuador, where's that? So, but I bet you if you were to do a poll nowadays, Shannon, up in your area, I bet you 6 out of 10 people that you talk to would have an idea of where Ecuador is now. Whereas 9 years ago, you wouldn't have gotten 1 or 2. So right. I think we're on the map. I think we're going forward. Where we're going to be in 12 months with a new election, I wish I did have that crystal ball. Mm-hmm. But either whatever may come, I mean, we're here. We have to find opportunities in whatever comes our way. And again, being able to roll with punches, find opportunities, and have a lot of patience is going to be what makes those of us who have been here this long continue to stay here. Right. So it'll be interesting. I look forward to talking to you over the next, maybe several months to see any developments that we have here, because it's of importance to anybody who may be thinking of investing here or moving here. It's an important time. And I know also with the elections coming up in the U.S., a lot of my clients are thinking of coming down here because they're not happy with anything that's going on in the U.S. So it's going to be a very interesting 12 months all around.
Yeah, the whole expat market, I think, has taken a huge jump in interest since Trump. I almost want to thank the guy, for all my becoming an expat guidebooks. I'm like, hey, I have free marketing. You'd be
surprised. I mean, you've got people on both sides, down here and up there. So, you could say anything about any candidate, quite honestly. But I think this is the first time in U.S. that I think that people are, concerned. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's the right word to use is concerned.
Yeah.
And, so in November, it's quite possible we see an influx of people calling me up saying, Amy, I'm coming down on vacation. I want to check out Salinas.
Yeah, shoot. Why wait till November? Check it out now.
Could very well be that way. I don't know. Who's to say? I'm hoping that for both the U.S. and for Ecuador that the elections are not too negative or too, heartbreaking.
Oh, sure.
I hope both countries, do the right thing and, realize that, we're living in a very progressive world and in a world of changes, and hopefully things will work out for the best on both sides. And like I said, 12 months it sounds like a long time, but it'll be here before you know it.
It will. Now, if you had it to do over again, this whole last decade or any part of it, would you change anything?
That's funny you asked me that, because I was recently asked that question from somebody else. And you know what? The only thing I can say that comes to the top of my head is I would have bought property 9 years ago. I would have bought a lot of it 9 years ago. Because, on average, especially here at the beach, we're seeing past maybe 5 years on average, an increase in price of oceanfront new construction, maybe on average between 8 and 12% gone up.
Well, okay, so you own Remax, and how do we reach you if there's someone who wants to talk to you about real estate in Ecuador?
I just started a new website, which does have all three of my businesses on it. You can just go to amyprisco.com.
Perfect.
And you will see all three of my businesses there. And It will have all the contact information for all three businesses there. It's got the Remax, it's got the Pioneer Travel, and it's got the Amigo Center. So with the emails and the phone numbers for each of them right on there.
Well, that's great. Well, we'll definitely have to reconnect and talk maybe more about running a business in Ecuador for a podcast, and maybe talk about your Pioneer Travel or your travel ambitions with that new business in another one. And then, whatever else we could come up with, just like pizza or beer conversation.
Yeah.
Ecuador's got a lot of craft beer now. We could talk about anything if you want.
Sure. You let me know.
It's been great having you on, Amy. I super appreciate your time and all your valuable advice with your experiences and stories. You're a hoot.
Great, awesome. It's always good talking to you, Shannon. I'm waiting for you to come back and visit me.
Amen.
I'm available.
I will be there just as soon as I can. I really do want to come back soon, because I'm going to be launching that the second edition of becoming an expat Ecuador really soon. So I kind of would like to go down to Ecuador for that. So we'll see.
Sure.
Amy wanted me to share with you from our off-air conversation that, even though they did have the recent earthquake, which I cover in the last episode of or I guess 2 episodes prior, Ecuador, Salinas in particular, is doing well. She says that Salinas really wasn't impacted, and to go ahead and come down there. It's safe, and the tourism would be great for Ecuador. That's exactly what they need right now. They definitely have a hit since the earthquake. People are kind of scared to get out there, but Salinas is still standing and unaffected. So there you have it.
You've been listening to Becoming an Expat. We'd like to hear from you. Email us your questions and share your stories about taking the leap into your new life abroad.
Are you tired of the daily grind or living for the weekends? Why put up with the life you dread? Learn how to live your life another way today. In our academy, you'll learn how to live life on your terms, what environment makes you thrive, and become the best you possible. We even teach you how to start a freedom business you can take with you while you travel the world. For those that like their deep roots, you'll learn how to retrain your brain to accomplish what you never knew possible from your hometown. So if you're at a crossroad in life and don't know which way to go or need to make a change, sign up for access to all of our courses at www.lifeanotherway.com. Hurry, because as we add courses, the one-time fee will increase. One enrollment fee, endless adventurous living.